All right, so we've got question number 2. Health officials now recommend that people reduce their intake of foods that are high in cholesterol, such as red meat. Okay. The recent decline in the total consumption of beef indicates that many people are following this recommendation. So we see that here we have our red meat. There's a recommendation out there to reduce your intake of foods overall that are high in cholesterol, such as red meat. And there's an overall decline in the consumption of beef. Great. But many restaurants specializing in steak are flourishing despite an overall decline in the restaurant industry. So we see our steak folks, there's a decline in the restaurant industry. Um, but the steak folks, our steak restaurants are flourishing. So we see there's our total consumption of beef has gone down, but our, steak restaurants are still doing really well. They use all of this reasoning to say our main conclusion. Therefore, so clearly, there are still a lot of people completely ignoring the health recommendation to reduce your intake of foods that are high in cholesterol. So, we're trying to get at something that's going to help us, attack the argument. It's going to expose the weak points in this argument, supporting our claim that a lot of people are completely ignoring the health recommendation. And they mainly get this by looking at the overall decline in the restaurant industry. So somehow, our author has given us this sense of, okay, our restaurant industry is the reason why, or our restaurant industry is evidence of a lot of people ignoring the health recommendation. So we're gonna have to think about this and evaluate that argument. This is a flaw question, so we know this is not a good argument. We are wondering why. So it could be possible that, maybe a lot of people, they're really getting a hankering for steak. They're like, oh, if I'm going to eat red meat and I'm going to eat less of it, like the health officials say, I'm going to make it really good. I'm going to get some really good, high quality steak if I'm going to eat some red meat, and limit myself. So it could be possible that, we have an overall decline in beef and steak, but, um, maybe people are just going out to these restaurants more often. There's still a lot of factors that the author hasn't addressed. So, let's think about this. Maybe they ate like 100 steaks a week, and now they're saying, okay, I don't need to make all these steaks myself. I'm gonna go to the restaurant this week. I'm gonna go every week, but I can only have one steak. Who knows? They're reducing their intake of high cholesterol red meat, but there's definitely a bunch of different reasons. It's not necessarily true that there are a lot of people completely ignoring it. So let's go ahead and look through our answer choices and see what's going on here. A, it neglects to consider whether restaurants that specialize in steak try to attract customers by offering steak dinners at low prices. Well, we don't really care how they try to attract customers. Um, and we don't know if they're offering steak dinners at low prices. Like, how does that help us? That doesn't really help us. Maybe there's other restaurants that are, offering steak dinners at low prices too. They're not just steak restaurants. Maybe they're, we got IHOP over here. They decide to go and get into the steak business by offering steak dinners. Yeah, we don't know. Maybe they do that and they're, also attracting customers, but they've got an overall decline. This is just way out of scope here. So we don't have to get out here in left field. B, it assumes without warrant that people who eat steak at steak restaurants do not need to reduce their intakes of foods that are high in cholesterol. So this one is attacking the recommendation. They're saying, oh, I don't know if everyone needs to, follow the recommendation here. And we don't really care if this recommendation applies to everybody or not. We're trying to get at, is this going to say that there's a lot of people ignoring the health recommendation? It doesn't say that, most people do not need to reduce their intake of foods that are high in cholesterol. We don't know if that would, if most people, if it were most people, then it could be a possibility that this is going to weaken our argument. We don't have enough information to assume that. C, it presupposes that the popularity of restaurants that specialize in steaks is a result of a decrease in the price in beef. Now, what is it with prices here? We don't really know anything about the price of beef, whether it goes up or down. And this doesn't help us get to why people are ignoring the health recommendation. This is completely out of scope as well. D, it mistakes the correlation of the decline in beef consumption and the decline in the restaurant industry for a causal relation. So what do we make of this? So What they're saying is that someone has mistaken correlation with causation here. So that happens when we have, one phenomenon happening at the same time as a different phenomenon. And, therefore one caused the other. Did that happen here? You know, I think a lot of people would probably pick this if they see correlation, causation, like, oh, that's such a common flaw. It's got to be this one. But, we're actually not out here discussing, whether the decline in beef consumption to, is related to the restaurant industry decline. They just say clearly there's people ignoring the health recommendation. So we went ahead and, that's not going to relate to our argument here, because our argument is really talking about the number of people ignoring the health recommendation rather than talking about beef consumption and the industry. Although it is really interesting to see that they are happening at the same time. If our author had said something about, the correlation and causation, what their conclusion might have been is that, one caused the other. Oh, so restaurants specializing in steak are flourishing because the decline in total consumption of beef has made beef rarer and people want it, they're deprived. The author might have made an argument like that. But, this is not really helping us get to our conclusion of why people would ignore the health recommendation, or it doesn't address it. So that leaves us with E. And if we didn't like our other answer choices, we could go ahead and just take E in general. But let's look at why E is our answer. It fails to consider whether the people who patronize steak restaurants have heeded health officials by reducing their cholesterol intake in their at-home diets. That's pretty similar to what, the questions that we had earlier. We're thinking, oh, maybe this person is saying, oh, I just, I really want to get steak, and I'm just gonna, not eat 50 steaks a day. I'm gonna go ahead and only eat the one steak. But, to do that, I'm gonna go to this really nice steak restaurant and do that. I'm gonna enjoy my single steak diet. um, so this one would really help us get to our conclusion about ignoring the health recommendation, or not ignoring the health recommendation. This one gives us an out. So we're going to like this one and we're going to pick E.